Jonah 1, 1-3. Now the word of the Lord came unto Jonah, saying, Arise, go to Nineveh. But Jonah rose up to flee unto Tarshish from the presence of the Lord. Jonah didn't start out in the belly of the fish. He started with a command, a clear, divine calling. God said, Arise, go to Nineveh. But Jonah said, No. Not with his words, but with his feet. He turned and ran. He wasn't running from Nineveh. He was running from the presence of the Lord. Why? Because Nineveh was everything Jonah hated. It was cruel, pagan, violent. In his heart, Jonah had already judged them unworthy of grace. He couldn't imagine that the God of Israel would show mercy to such people. So he ran, away from his calling, away from the burden, away from the God who had sent him. And just like Jonah, we too can find ourselves tempted to flee, not to Tarshish, but to distraction, to silence, to comfort zones that help us ignore the hard things God asks of us. And yet, the farther Jonah ran, the heavier the call became. Have you ever felt it? That quiet tug on your heart you keep trying to silence? That voice that won't leave you alone? Jonah thought distance could drown out God's voice, but you can't outrun the one who holds the sea and sky. God wasn't punishing Jonah when the storm came. He was pursuing him in love, with purpose, to lead him to a place where his prayer would finally rise. Jonah 1:17. Now the Lord had prepared a great fish to swallow up Jonah, and Jonah was in the belly of the fish 3 days and 3 nights. The storm didn't change Jonah's heart. Being thrown overboard didn't either. But something happens when you land in a place where no one else can rescue you but God. Jonah's descent into the belly of the fish wasn't just physical, it was spiritual, emotional. It was the place where pride suffocated and silence screamed, a place where time stood still, where he had no more excuses, no more control, and no more ways to run. This wasn't punishment, this was mercy, a mercy shaped like a fish. God could have let Jonah drown. He could have chosen someone else. But instead, he prepared a rescue wrapped in darkness. Why? Because God wasn't just after Nineveh's repentance, he was after Jonah's too. Can you imagine the stillness inside that fish? The stench, the darkness, the pressure, no light, no voices, just breathe, just God. And in that suffocating quiet, something inside Jonah began to break. He realized that the God he tried to flee from had never left him. Sometimes God allows the walls to close in, not to crush us, but to confine us long enough to hear his voice again. Sometimes his greatest work in us happens in the dark, not in the light. Jonah didn't just fall into a fish, he fell into grace. Jonah 2:1-2. Then Jonah prayed unto the Lord his God out of the fish's belly, and said, I cried by reason of mine affliction unto the Lord, and he heard me. Jonah had nothing left. No ship, no escape, no plan. Only brokenness, only darkness, only regret. And that was enough, because sometimes it's not the words but the heart that moves heaven. Sometimes it's the desperate groan, the whisper in the deep, the tear no one sees, but God hears. In the belly of the fish, Jonah finally prayed, not like a prophet, not like a preacher, but like a man who had nowhere else to turn but God. Jonah 2:3-4. For thou hadst cast me into the deep. Then I said, I am cast out of thy sight, yet I will look again toward thy holy temple. This was not just a prayer of fear, it was a prayer of faith. Jonah remembered the God he once knew, the God of covenant, the God who hears. And even in the depths, he dared to hope again. Jonah 2:5-6. The waters compassed me. I went down to the bottoms of the mountains. The earth with her bars was about me forever. Yet hast thou brought up my life from corruption, O Lord my God. Jonah realized, even here God sees me. Even now God can save me. Sometimes it takes the darkness to see the light. Sometimes we must lose everything to find the one thing that matters. And in that moment, Jonah let go of pride, of control, of bitterness, and he surrendered. Jonah 2:9. But I will sacrifice unto thee with the voice of thanksgiving. Salvation is of the Lord. That was the turning point. Not when the fish vomited him out, not when the storm calmed, but when his heart bowed in surrender and gratitude. Because true repentance doesn't begin with escape. It begins with surrender. In the dark, in the deep, in the moment when we say, Lord, I need you more than I need deliverance. Jonah 2:10. And the Lord spake unto the fish, and it vomited out Jonah upon the dry land. God had heard from the darkness, from the depth, from the belly of a fish where no one else could reach. He heard. This is the mystery and the miracle of grace. There is no depth too deep, no night too dark, no distance too far. When a heart cries out in truth, even from a self-made prison, God responds. God didn't just hear Jonah's words. He heard Jonah's surrender. He heard the breaking of pride. He heard the awakening of faith. And at that moment, God commanded the fish to release him. Jonah didn't climb out by his own strength. He didn't earn his way back. It wasn't Jonah who saved Jonah. It was mercy. That same mercy reaches you today. You may feel swallowed by guilt, by shame, by consequences of your own choices. You may feel trapped, emotionally, spiritually, in a place no one else understands. But the God who heard Jonah from the deep is the same God who hears you. Psalm 139, verse 8. If I make my bed in hell, behold, thou art there. Psalm 34:18. The Lord is nigh unto them that are of a broken heart. He is not waiting for you to be strong again. He is waiting for you to cry out, because grace doesn't meet us at the surface. It meets us at the bottom. And when Jonah's prayer rose, so did Jonah. Jonah 3:1-2. And the word of the Lord came unto Jonah the second time, saying, Arise, go unto Nineveh, and preach unto it the preaching that I bid thee. The storm had passed, the fish had released him, the dirt was under his feet again, and now the word came a second time. That is the mercy of God. He didn't say, I'm done with you. He didn't say, you failed, I've moved on. He said, arise again. Because grace doesn't end when we run. It begins when we return. Jonah had nothing to offer but obedience. No more resistance. No more delay. Just a prophet, marked by mercy, walking the long road to Nineveh, step by step. He still bore the weight of his past, but now it was softened by the memory of the God who met him in the deep. Have you ever felt disqualified because of your mistakes? Felt like God might have moved on from you? Take heart. God is the God of second chances. Not just for Nineveh, but for Jonah. And not just for Jonah, for you. Lamentations 3:22-23. It is of the Lord's mercies that we are not consumed. They are new every morning. When God gives you dry ground under your feet again, don't stay stuck in regret. Walk forward, obey, preach what he puts in your mouth, because the call hasn't been canceled, just renewed. 6. You may not be inside a literal fish, but maybe you're in your own dark place, a place where hope feels distant, where regret hangs heavy, where you wonder, how did I get here? And if that's you, you are not alone, because the same God who heard Jonah in the deep, he still hears. He still speaks. He still saves. The belly of the fish is not the end. It's the pause, the turning point, the sacred silence where pride dies and prayer rises. Jonah 2:7. When my soul fainted within me, I remembered the Lord, and my prayer came in unto thee, into thine holy temple. You don't need the perfect words. You just need a heart willing to cry out. Because God is not listening for eloquence. He's listening for surrender. Maybe you've been running like Jonah. Maybe you've tried to bury the call. Maybe you've been sitting in silence for too long. But now is your time. Right here, in your own belly of the fish, in your own moment of regret or confusion or stillness, you can pray. Lord, I'm done running. Lord, I need you more than deliverance. Lord, I surrender. And when that prayer rises, so will you.